Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are going to discuss everything you need to know about the bakery industry. Okay, and this is to give you the necessary knowledge you need in order to succeed in your business in Ghana. So if you are someone who is desiring to enter into the bakery business, this video is for you, and I'll encourage you to exercise the patience and listen to the things that will be shared. Let's dive in. So now, the bread business is a very good business. It is a very profitable business, especially in Ghana. The last video I did, I discussed about the transportation, sector, and today I'm talking about the bakery sector. Okay, now I can confidently let you know that the bakery business is also a very profitable industry that you can venture yourself into, as if you want to establish a business within this country. Okay, one of the advantage of entering into bread production business, okay, has to do with, you have businesses that are seasonal in nature. Within the year you have your peak seasons and then you have your low seasons, and they are affected by situations and seasons. But bread, unlike many products, it's not something that is seasonal in nature. Okay, we started eating bread since Adam's time. Adam's time. They ate it. Abraham came to eat it. Even Jesus Christ himself ate a lot of bread. Okay, and we have been eating it until now. And we'll die and go, and our descendants will also come and continue eating bread. So the bread industry is not something that you go into it and struggle if you do it right, because there is the market for it. The market is there for it. It is not seasonal in nature. It is not something that is going to end anytime soon. Yeah, so another advantage of starting or running a bread business has to do with the regularity of sales. Okay, so as a young entrepreneur, because I believe I'm speaking to Ghanaians who are either thinking about starting a business or are in the early phase of their business. Okay, that's why I like to stick to the fundamentals. As a young entrepreneur, especially as an inexperienced entrepreneur, you would need the kind of business that will enable you to be seeing regular cash. Okay, there are some businesses that you go into that you'll not be selling on daily basis. Sometimes you'll be selling more of weekly or sometimes even monthly. Okay, and some of them are even seasonal. But as an entrepreneur who is starting on his journey, your first business should be something that you'll be able to sell on daily basis. And the bakery business, specifically the bread business, will be a very good choice for you. Okay, the other advantage of entering into the bakery business, where I'm now into the bread industry, is the fact that it is very scalable. Okay, there are sectors that you will struggle in terms of scaling it up, but the bread business, when done properly, is scalable, which means that you can be at this location and you'll be producing bread that will cover several communities. As you are aware, with my bakery, I'm able to attend to several communities beyond my reach. Now we need to see the bread business for what it is. It can be divided into two broad categories. We have the local bread, and then we also have the exotic bread. And all these kind of bread and these two broad categories exist within the country. Even when you are outside, yeah, you will have, but the idea is about bakery business within Ghana. Okay, so broadly they can be classified into two categories: the local and then the exotic. The local bread, as the word says, local, is the usual bread that you see, the normal tea bread, the normal sugar bread, the normal butter bread that we see in our community. This is the bread that you walk into the shop, and maybe if it is 15 or 20 cedis, you talk to the woman that, okay, I'm buying 5 cedis, and then she will cut it for you, then you take it home and so on stuff. This is the foundation when it comes to bakery, and this kind of bakery exists within our communities. This kind of bread is designed for a certain specific segment of the community, because when you are entering into bread business, you need to understand these things. It's very, very important, because that will form the foundation of everything that you do. You need to first of all identify the kind of customers that you want to serve. You need to, before you even initiate the whole bread business into existence. The local bread is designed for the lower tier of Ghanaians. Okay, you know, Ghanaians, we have the lower tier, the middle tier, and then the upper tier or the upper class. So the lower class, the middle class, and then the upper class Ghanaians. The local bread is designed purely for the lower tier. These are individuals who are, sensitive to prices. Their desire is not about quality. It is not about quality nor taste. If they get taste, they would want it, but that is not what is the underlying reason of why they will buy your bread or not. They prefer quantity over quality. They are struggling. These are Ghanaians who are really struggling, paycheck to paycheck, really struggling. Okay, so for such customers, they prefer to have, the bigger bread with nothing much in it. As long as it's baked that they can, eat and also, provide for their family, they are okay. Okay. Now, we also have the second category, which is the exotic bread. And this kind of bread is also designed for a different, category of Ghanaians. This bread is designed primarily for the middle class and upper class Ghanaians. These are individuals who are not too sensitive to pricing. Pricing is not too much of a factor when it comes to whether they are buying from you or not. What really makes them decide to buy your product and to continue to buy your product has to do with the overall quality of the product that you are producing. They prefer bread that is of higher quality in terms of taste and packaging. Okay, these individuals or Ghanaians are not necessarily interested in the local bread. That's not what they want. They want bread that is properly produced under hygienic condition, that has been packaged properly, that has good quality and good taste. These two categories, the local and exotic, makes the complete picture of the bread industry. So now that you are considering in terms of whether you should enter into the bread business or not, this is something that you need to come to terms with. Are you going in for the local bread, or you are going into the production of the exotic bread? They have their advantages. The exotic bread has its own advantages. The local bread also has its own advantages. So now that you have considered the local and then the exotic bread, and you have decided on which of the categories you want to go to, then you have to now move to the next stage. Now, to start any business, whichever business it is, whether it's a livestock business or whatever, now there are entry points that you can enter into, and it's important you take note of this. To enter into the bakery business, we have three entry points that you can enter into, because these are layers that exist within the business. It's an industry. It's an industry. It's not necessarily that you start from this point or you enter from this point. You can enter in different, but there are just 3 areas that you can enter from, and from there you begin to, move into the other layers if that's what you want to do. The first layer has to do with the production segment. This is where you have the bakery, where you have a team that you are working with. You have all the equipment, and then you are producing the bread. Okay, so that's one level that of the bread industry. You also have the distribution layer, where the bread that has been produced at the bakery is distributed. Okay, so they are sometimes called suppliers, but it's the distribution layer. Then we also have the third layer, which is the retailing, okay, of the bread. This is where you go to, Accra, Medina, Ashaman, the big markets that exist in Koforidua and rest, and even the normal provision shops. You see people retailing and selling the bread. Okay, so that's also another layer that exists that you can choose to enter into it. So it's not necessarily that you have to open a bakery in order to say that you're in a bread industry. As long as you are in these 3 chains, you can, of course, you are still in the industry, and you can expand if you choose to. So now, talking about the entry into the bread business, some individuals begin their entry at the retailing layer. They acquire vehicles and vans, like I did for myself, okay, which I'll go into later on in the video. They acquire vehicles and vans. Usually the retailing of bread is usually done in tricycles and vans. Okay, if you really want to sell bread, usually done in those segments. Forgetting about the those who sell it in provision shops and stuff. I'm talking about those who park by the roadside to retail bread. Okay, so some individuals decide to enter at the retailing level. They acquire maybe 1-2 tricycles and begin to sell bread. They park it at a certain vantage point, which is something you can do. You acquire a tricycle, depending on your income. Preferably, I would say acquire a very good tricycle. You park it at a very good place. Then you get the bread that you want to sell. Okay, so when customers are light at bus stop and they are going home, they'll begin to buy, and gradually you begin to see that the business is a good one, and eventually you start opening 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations. And as we are beginning to make income from that, you realize that, oh, okay, then why don't I also start doing the bread myself, which will lead you into the production layer. So you begin the production, and over time you see that you are producing, you are distributing the bread to your outlet, and finally you're also even distributing bread to other customers. I know other Ghanaians who also started straight from the distribution layer. They acquired a van, they were not retailing the bread, they look for people who were selling bread, so they will just go to bakeries. Okay, I have people who will come to a bakery and maybe SDK bread and say that, okay, fine, I want to work with you, and so I'll come in the morning with my car. We'll come and take some of the bread and go and supply it to his or her customers that he has acquired. Okay, so this person is also into the bread industry, but what he's focused on is the distribution. And you understand that every bread that he picks now, it has his profit component. Okay, so this is something that you can also look at. So don't look at it in a very broad sense as in a bakery business and the machines. That's why I'm saying that starting a business, preferably start it very small with what you have. Start it very small with what you have. You think you have to do something so massive, and that's why you have been unable to start that business. Okay, so I said there are others who start at the distribution layer. Okay, and they have been successful. Some of them have also now opened retailing outlets. They were first supplying, but over time they also have acquired 1, 2, 3 cars or tricycles which are selling for them while they are still doing the distribution. And finally, There are some who have even eventually ended up also now opening their own bakery business, and because of the fact that they already have outlets and even existing customers, it makes the whole transition very easy for them. Now the last aspect has to do with the production of the bread. This is where you have the bakery with your your equipments and stuff that you are working with, which at the end of the day you end up producing the bread that you are producing. Okay, and over here too, I think it's important to have to let you know that you don't start a bakery and say that you want to acquire all the machine. No, you don't do that. If you have the resources, fine, but even with that, I would not encourage you to do that. Okay, I wouldn't, because the machines and equipment are very expensive. One thing that I also have to let you know, if you do not start small and you invest so much money into the bakery business, you realize that when you start, you will not be that patient to allow the business grow, because you have invested so much into the business. Yes, you have invested so much into the business that you will not be able to sleep, because you want to start making your money back. Okay. Now, going back to the initial issue that I was discussing with you about the two types of bread that you can enter into, the exotic bread and then the local bread. With the local bread, it is much easier, just going straight in terms of opening a bakery without retailing outlets. So we have many bakeries who just open and they are doing the local bread. So when I talk about local bread, they are just the ordinary bread. There are some bread that are branded, they are branded, you see brands on it, but that doesn't make it an exotic bread. Okay, they are just a normal local bread. They are big in size, the taste is not much of an issue, and blah blah blah. Yes, many Ghanaians are able to move into it straight by opening a bakery, and usually they don't even have machines that they use. They will go to the local vicinity that we have. There's a machine that you can go to and knead your bread. Okay, so usually within your communities it exists, so don't be worried. That's what I say, don't be worried too much about the machines, the equipment that you will use to do your bread. Okay, when you're in the right community, like the Teshin community, Shaman community, Nungwa community, Spinters, you would have you will have somewhere within the community where the equipment exists that you can take your bread and go and knead and bring it back. That's at the initial phase, so that as you are doing it over time, you begin to acquire your machines. Okay, so starting a bakery for the local bread is much easier. You don't necessarily need a retailing outlet. You start it very small. On the onset, gradually you see that you begin to have customers. You would have to now start talking to people. You have to go and talk to some provision shops and the cuckoo seller and the tea seller and all this sort of stuff, okay, at the beginning. But over time, you see that people will come and take it from you in the morning and go and sell it. Okay, so starting such a business is much easier in terms of opening from the production level. That's at the bakery level. Okay, so if you want to go into the bakery business and you want to do the local bread, it is easier, and the point of entry for you should be at the bakery level, whereby you do production. But with the exotic bread, I started it in a different way, but whichever way, you can still go to the production level. Okay, you can still go to the production level, because I know businesses that just went straight to the production level. You can, especially if you have the resources for that. But make sure that alongside you open retailing outlets. That is if you decide to go into the exotic bread. Yes, you need to have retailing outlets when you decide to go into the exotic bread, because from the onset, unlike the local bread, acquiring customers for the exotic bread is very difficult. And this is something that I need to point out to you. If you want to go to the top class middle level bread, okay, like the A1, the SDK, the B4 star, the KD, the hot oven and the rest, you would have to have your own point of sales. You would have to, which is usually a tricycle or a car. Okay, you bake on the onset, You would let your your sales team go and park at a certain vantage point, then they begin to do the selling, which will take some time. Okay, it can take between 3, 4, 5, 6 months before you begin to acquire reasonable number of customers. Okay, even that one depends on the level of marketing that you do. This is the point I want to pass across, that when you decide to move into those kind of bread, from the onset, you will not have customers. You will not have customers. You cannot just walk to a provision shop and show your bread to them that, oh, you have this bread, and they have to buy it. No, it will not happen. You will do a lot of marketing back and forth. Yeah, you begin to have gradual one customer. This customer will say that, okay, maybe give me about 5 pieces, and another time you get another one. But it takes a very long time to pick up. Okay, yeah, it takes a very long time to pick up. So what will sustain you are the outlets that you have. Okay, are the outlets that you have, the retailing, the point of sales that you have. Okay, that is what has kept all those that I know who have gone into the exotic. They have their own vans that they park and they sell their bread whilst they begin to acquire other customers. Because if you do not do this, you will not be able to survive, because whilst you are doing that business, you will need to pay your workers. Okay, you will need to pay your work, you need to generate income. Okay, so for the retailing of the high-end bread, I would say that you should give yourself about 6 months in order to see some level of stability in terms of the customer acquisition. But that is even when you are able to do a very good job. You have a very good marketing team that you spread the bread across and stuff. Okay, so once again, make sure you have your point of sales. For me, I started straight from the retailing. Initially, I started with the retailing of the exotic high-end bread, and over time I decided to open my own bakery. Okay, made it much easier for me, because if I had not done that, to be honest, I wouldn't have survived in business. Yeah, I wouldn't, because when I started, for almost about 2 months, 3 months, I was really not having any customer. I just had about 2 or 3 customers who were taking from me, and this customer would take about 10 pieces, and this customer would take about 2 pieces, and the other customer would take maybe about maybe 7 pieces or something. Okay, and today they will take it, tomorrow they will not take some, today they will take it, the next time that you need them the most, you call them and they'll tell you that they are not available. Okay, and that's one aspect of the bread business, especially when you are doing the exotic bread. If you do not have your own point of sales, trust me, your business will be so irregular. It's not something that you can predict that today, but no, because in the morning you have to call your customers, okay, and they will tell you that, oh, it's Friday, we are going for funeral, there's this event here, I'm traveling, my mom is sick and stuff, and realize that today you are doing 50 bags, tomorrow you are doing 7 bags, today you are not even doing any other bag, tomorrow you don't even do any other bag, because of the fluctuation in the demand. Okay, but those who are able to do and succeed in this business, they have their points of sales. For instance, for me, the point of sales that I have usually pick between 7 to 10 bags. Okay, yeah, 7 to 10 bags a day. Okay, so assuming nobody even picks bread for me on that day now, if not for anything, at least about 8 bags I should be able to do it on daily basis. Okay, so it makes me to produce on daily basis. So when in the event where the other customers are also picking and stuff, now you realize that I'm able to do reasonable high quantity of bread. Okay, so it's something you have to look into. I have point of sales that I'm able to sell on daily basis, and because of that I produce every day. Yeah, okay, so have a look at that. So now I'm going to talk to you about 2 different stories. Okay, and these are real life stories to let you know how 2 individuals moved into, 1 the exotic bread and 2 the local bread, so that you understand how this thing is done practically. I'll begin with the exotic bread. When I talk about exotic bread, I'm talking about well-branded bread that is designed for the middle and upper class Ghanaians. Okay, like the hot oven SDK bread, B Foster, KD, E1 and the rest. Okay, now this is how I started my business. There were bakeries that were already producing this kind of exotic bread. Okay, that's why I constantly advocate that when you are starting business, start it small. Okay, starting a bakery business, somebody will start it with over $20,000-$30,000 because we want to buy all the equipment, rent the best office, do the tiling, do the POPs and whatever. By the time the person will be done, $40,000-$50,000 would have been spent in local currency. Over 300,000-400,000 Ghana cedis will be spent. But on the other way, I also started a bakery business. As I said, I started it from the retailing outlets. Now, when I started this business, as I've been saying, there were already well-branded breads, the exotic ones, they were in existence. So all I just had to do was to, buy this bread and then, bring it to my outlet. I only had one outlet, and then I began to sell it. Okay, so as I was selling and demand began to pick, I realized that, okay, fine, then let me open additional locations. So that's why I began to multiply my location. I opened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and currently I have 10 locations that I retail my bread from. Okay, and most of them are in vehicles and then in tricycles that we have parked in various vantage locations that we sell our bread. Okay, so when that was done, I realized that, okay, now I have enough retailing outlets. Okay, I had enough retailing outlets. I was making profit because I was buying bread and I was selling them. Okay, then I said, okay, now it is time for me to also now start producing my own bread. And as I've said, the exotic bread, gaining customers is very difficult. So I started my own production on a very small scale. And when I started it, when I produced maybe, let's say, butter bread now, the quantity of butter bread I pick from the other exotic people, I reduce it. Then I infuse I also make sure that the quality of bread I was producing, the SDK bread, and the quality was either at the same level or better than the other exotic bread, because the customers ultimately will compare it with this bread. They already know this brand, but they didn't know my brand. So that's how I started. So I'll produce my butter bread because I started producing the butter bread first. And I also made sure that the quality was very okay. When the customers come, they will come and they realize that the other butter bread they want is finished. Then they'll be forced to buy mine. Okay, sometimes they will talk plenty, but they will still buy it. And then they say, fine, they are going to try to see. But when they eat it, they realize that the quality is very, very good. It's sometimes even better than the one that they already know. Okay, so gradually you realize that when customers come now, unlike previously, I say, okay, now maybe this bread is not available, so give me this one. When they come, they begin to say that, do you have SDK? SDK is finished. When is this? And when am I getting some of the SDK bread? Why? Because now they have realized that this bread also is of better quality, and then they are interested in it. Okay, so then over a period of time, you realize that when I started my bakery for almost 3, 4, 5 months, I really didn't have any real external customers that I was supplying bread to, let's say the provision shops and other people. No, I didn't. I was purely supplying it to my shop. Okay, I was purely supplying to my shop, and even to my shop, and it was difficult. Why? Because this kind of bread, the customers already know the bread they want to buy. Whether they want to buy A1 or Hottovin or B Foster, they already know the bread they want to buy. So when they come, they will choose the bread, and you are not going to change their mind. But I began to infuse it gradually into the market. Okay, it was a period of time, I realized that now my bread was accounting for somewhere 50% of the sales. It started with just about 5%, maybe 10%, 15%, but gradually the production, what I was producing began to increase. I also began to gradually reduce the other exotic bread I was picking, because the whole idea was for me to build my bakery. That was the whole idea, to build my bakery. But it is a gradual process. Okay, as I was doing it, I made some mistakes. Customers would complain about this, about that, about the salt level is too high, about whatever, then you were adjusting it. Over a period of time now, I realized that the market share of my business, that's the SDK bread, was about 50% of the total sales that was doing. But gradually, now my SDK bread now began to account for almost about 90% of the total sales that I was doing for my business. Okay, and This thing took about almost 7 to let's say 9 months for the SDK bread to account for about 80 to 90% of my sales. But whilst I was achieving that, because I had locations in the various joints, and the community began to know and notice it, that this SDK Revolutionary is a bread coming into the market, and they now accepted it. So around that period, you realize that now other provision shops now began to call me. And when my drivers are doing the supply, you realize that people now begin to stop them. Okay, I see this bread around. Can you supply me some for me to try it? So they'll begin to supply it to this one. Maybe some of the military men in the barracks, they begin to buy it and stuff. And then gradually you see that you begin to now acquire new customers. Okay, but you're acquiring them knowing that you already have your outlet that you are selling. It made the transition very smooth for me. And that's why I say that if you want to go for the bread that are of very high quality, some of them are a bit expensive and stuff. It is very difficult when you start from the production level without retailing it. It's best you start retailing those kind of bread and gradually open a bakery business and attach it to it, so that when you start it, you can easily now transfer it to the retail and sell your bread yourself. Once over time, you begin to build the external customers. Because if you do not do it that way, you might not be able to survive in business. Okay, because you'll be producing and nobody will be buying it. To be very honest with you, when you go in that direction, you'll be producing for a certain number of months, but you'll not really be having customers. And sometimes you call them, and that's the funny thing about this kind of bread. You call them, maybe you are taking orders or you want to supply them bread, and then this person has gone for funeral. This person is not around today. If you did that, you call that, everybody will say that today I'm not picking any bread. I'm not picking any bread. So what do? You don't produce. But meanwhile, you have workers that you have to pay. Okay, but the advantage that I had, is the fact that I had my own outlets, and there were 10 of those, and I was always producing, whether they pick the bread or not. Now I have to be producing at least 7 or 8 bags on a daily basis. The other issue I also need to understand about the approach to which I use for my business is the fact that it makes it very profitable. It makes it very profitable in the sense that, well, the profit of the business, in business, your layers, as I've said, we have the retailing, the distribution, and then the production. The profit margin is always cut across. The one producing has its profit margin. The one distributing also has a margin on it, and the one retailing also has a margin on it. But for me, I get all the margins. I get a margin for the the production. I get a margin for the distribution, but I do the distribution myself. I distribute to my shops. At the same time, I distribute to my customers. Currently, my customers will account for, let's say, about 30% of the total revenue. Okay, and my outlets will account for about 70%. But the goal for myself next year, is to increase my customer component into about 60% to maybe 70%, so that my outlets will account for just merely 30% or something. That's what I am working on. So what I was saying on that point has to do with the fact that I enjoy a significant profit margin because I do both the production, the distribution, and then the retailing. Okay, for instance, when you do one bread, for instance, now the profit margin on it is 5 cedis. Why? Because at the bakery, when I do one bread now, the profit margin on it is 1 cedi 50 pesos. The one doing the distribution also have a profit margin of, let's say, 1 cedi 50 pesos. And then the one doing the retailing may have a profit margin of, let's say, 2 cedis. Okay, a profit margin of 2. And you do it that way because, master, they can buy other bread and make a margin of 3 cedis or 4 cedis per with a sale of one bread. So when they buy your bread, the margin of money is very small now. Trust me, they will not be buying your bread because people only do things that is profitable to them. Okay, so for them, among retailing, their profit margin is 2 cedis. Me, the one producing, my margin is 1 cedi 50 pesos, and the distribution, my margin is what, 1 cedi 50 pesos. But because I'm able to cut across all these layers, I'll end up with one bread having a margin of around sometimes 4 to 5 Ghana cedis per bread. Okay, and that's the advantage when it comes to your ability to cut across the whole layers. Okay, now the last but one thing I want to discuss with you is the fact that whichever way, whether you start from the retailing outlets or you start from the production stage, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is for you to have a bakery business, which over time you would need to acquire machines. These are things you need to know, that when you decide to enter into the bread business over a period of time, you need to acquire your machines. The machines are very, very expensive. Okay, they are very, very expensive. For instance, the mixer is very expensive. One bag mixer can cost you as much as 100,000 Ghana cedis. Okay, if you want a 2-bag mixer, it can cost you as much as almost getting to 200,000 Ghana cedis just for the mixer. Okay, the slicing machine can cost you as much as 20,000 Ghana cedis. We have the molding machine and the sheeter, and there are different various kind of machines. Now we have the local oven, and then we also have the foreign oven. The best oven that you will need is a foreign oven, the convention. We have a convention oven, okay, and we have the deck oven and stuff. I'm not going into details, okay, but the main thing I want to classify is the fact that we have the local oven and the foreign oven. Okay, the local oven is relatively very affordable. 1-bag oven, you can get it for maybe around 9,000, maybe 10,000. Yeah, you can get a 1-bag oven for about 10,000 Ghana cedis. But for a 1-bag foreign oven, it can cost you as much as 50,000-60,000 Ghana cedis just for 1-bag oven. Okay, so the ovens are also very, very expensive. Very, very expensive. Okay, and there are other items that you will need to acquire, and other because you need a lot of things to set the whole place up. Okay, so I'm saying these things for you to have in mind that these are all things you need to acquire. Okay, but you don't need to acquire these things in order to start it. But eventually you would have to acquire these things. But when you do it rightly, you can be on the business and gradually begin to acquire them, because that's what I did, and that's what the other lady did, and that's what I know the other people I know in the bakery business are doing. As I said, I was in the banking sector and I worked with a lot of bakery businesses, and trust me, it's a very profitable business. Most of the customers who were into bakery business whilst I was working with them hardly defaulted. They had good businesses, and they pay. When you are assessing credit, we have sectors, and this sector is a high risk sector. These people usually default and stuff. But the bakery business was one sector that we hardly get our customers delaying loans and their repayment of their loans and stuff. Why? Because it's a very lucrative sector. It's a sector that, like I said, you always see money on daily basis, and when it's done properly, you will make a lot of money. Okay, now my final words to you is about me discussing the challenges in the bakery business. Okay, the challenges in the bakery business is the fact that you don't need a lot of money to start it. That's the first thing. Whether you're doing the local bread or the foreign bread, you don't need a lot of money to start it. But over the long term, it's very expensive. Okay, the equipment are very expensive. I say you don't need a lot of money to start it because of the approaches that are given to you. You can start it without having your own equipment, and you can go and need it from the other locations and stuff. Okay, but if you want to start it big time and produce it and have production shop and so whatever, it is very expensive. But whether you are buying all of them and starting at the onset, or whether you begin the gradual process, which is my encouragement to you, because by that you learn. When you buy all the machines and come and put them down, trust me, you would not be able to succeed. I keep on saying these things because when you spend over 150,000 to buy a mixer, 20,000 to buy a slicer, and the molder and sheeter and whatever, you spend over 300,000-400,000 to set the whole place up now. Trust me, you'll be under so much pressure that you will not be able to exercise patience for the business to grow up. Okay, yeah, so my encouragement is that start it small. Start in the way I have communicated to you. If you have resources, the fact that you have resources doesn't mean you need to commit it to it. Start it small. Yes, now back to what I was discussing. It's expensive in the long term overall, whether you're starting it on a short term or in the long term, whether you're buying the equipment at the beginning or in the course of the business. And then the equipment are very expensive, which you need to know. Okay. The second thing you need to know is that it's a business that requires very, very good accounting. There are people in the bakery business, the bread business, or whether even in general the bakery business, who may be doing 30 bags and 40 bags. You have somebody doing 10 bags who makes more profit than the one doing even 50 bags. To be very honest with you, it's a sector that you need to do proper accounting. Master, you would need proper accounting in bakery business, and then by born in your mouth. Okay, you need to do proper accounting. If you do not do proper accounting, you realize that you are doing sales, but nevertheless, you are not seeing top. You need to, if you are not somebody who cannot do proper accounting now, then I will say that you should reconsider your decision to enter into this business, because you will need it. And it's not just, yes, you will need an accountant who will be doing the accounting for you, but you of yourself, you need to be able to understand the accounting information. You need to know, say, when I do one bag now, this is the number of bread that I get. Okay, if I work for about a day, this is the average profit that I get. In a week, this is the average profit I get. This is the item, the stocks I have. Master, if you do not know, because the sector that, master, one year proper accounting, you would be selling and yet you will not be making profit. Okay. The third thing I also want you to understand is the fact that it's also a sector that, master, if you are not able to manage waste, you will not make a lot of money out of it. Okay, and these things I'm saying are things which are the main challenges for bakeries. Okay. Waste is something that you need to avoid to the barest minimum. Your workers will bake bread and some will fall on the ground. Some will burn and some will fall and some will become flat and stuff. You need to put measures in place to avoid these things. Master, the moment you are not able to avoid, because for instance, one of my bread is 18 Ghana cedis. You just imagine on daily basis about 3-4 of the bread get spoiled. Just imagine even 4 or 5, which can occur if you do not put measures in place now. You're almost getting to how much? You're almost getting to over 80 Ghana cedis on daily basis. Just imagine you multiply this thing by a whole 1 month. It's almost about 3,000 Ghana cedis. It's a sector that, master, if you do not put your feet down now, there will be so much waste in the system. Aside the fact say 5 of the bread got spoiled, your workers will also say they want some. They want some in the morning to buy tea, to take their tea and stuff. Your mother will also want some of the bread. Your pastor will also want some of the bread. Even yourself, you also take some of the bread. And your community, the police people, when they are doing the supply, they will also stop you. They want some of the bread. Master, everybody would want you to give them the bread that you are selling for free. One felt, if you do not put your feet down, you'll be working and nevertheless you'll not be making profit. Forget instead the bread that you are sharing or the bread that is being spoiled. These are your profit. Okay, so if you are moving into the bread business, it's something you should be able to pay attention to. Keep adequate records. Avoid waste. Avoid waste. And the last thing I want to discuss with you is the fact that it's a sector that you need to ensure that you understand it. Master, whatever business you want to go into, you need to take the time and learn it. Okay? You need to take the time and learn it. The business that I started, I had discussion with a lady who was already involved in it. I didn't start it big. I started it very small. I started from the retailing outlet and I learned it. By selling the bread, I understood what it means to sell the bread. I understood what the customers were looking for. When they come, they were giving me feedback. And I was doing the selling myself. They complain about this bread product. They were complaining, they bring complaints. So by the time I started my bakery, I understood what the customers were really interested in. Okay, and what makes customers come and stop buying your bread and stuff. I got to understand all these things by retailing the bread myself. So I didn't start the bakery business out of ignorance. Okay, so it's something I would also encourage you that make sure that you study and understand the business that you want to go through. There are people who are onto bakery. Okay, you can go to them and work with them. You can offer your services for free. Oh, madam, I want to come and study. I want to come and work with you for maybe a month or 2 months. I want to learn the bread business. Discuss with somebody and go and learn the business. Okay, because you need that knowledge. My final words to you is the fact that I want to let you know that it is a sector, the bread business is a sector that is very, very profitable and very lucrative. And I would encourage each and everyone who wants to go into this business to do so. But I want you to go into the sector, taking into account the issues that I have discussed with you. It's a sector that when you do it properly now, you make a lot of money. But when you do not do it properly too now, you can lose some money.